Hello and welcome to the Rhythm Changes podcast. I'm your host, Will Chernoff, and we are in the thick of the 2024 Vancouver International Jazz Festival. I want to thank the Coastal Jazz and Blues Society for bringing me out to so many events and for Frankie's and Tyrant Studios for doing the same thing. I'm having a blast. I'm just trying to keep up. I hosted an event to kick off the festival with Chris Wong talking about his book. That was great fun. So I don't have anything else to say here other than I hope I see you around for the rest of this week. There's a lot of great coverage coming out of it at Rhythm Changes over the rest of the summer. It'll take me that long to share everything I've been seeing with you. And a lot of it is going to be for the subscribers who pay to support Rhythm Changes and receive the Subscriber Fridays exclusive column. Every Friday, you can become one of those. This is a great time to add your support to Rhythm Changes by becoming a subscriber now at rhythmchanges.ca. And thank you very much for all the support that you've shown this project, especially now at Jazz Fest time. I'm thinking of that a lot. Thank you so much. All right. Well, this was on my wish list and it happened. That's always super cool when it happens. I'm really grateful that this worked out. This is a conversation with somebody who's a legend to me and probably a legend to you as well if you're from the CapU jazz community. And I was so excited to hear what he had to say. We did an episode. It's a little bit of a quick one, but a good one when he joined me in downtown Vancouver. And once again, this is a Jazz Fest special and I'm so stoked to share this with you. Our guest today is an arranger, an educator, a vocal instructor, a musical director. He's a legend of the Capilano University jazz faculty, now retired though. He has a Jazz Fest show coming up as part of North Shore Jazz at the Blue Shore Theatre for the Performing Arts with his Marois Vocal Project, an homage to Dave Brubeck. So please welcome to the Rhythm Changes podcast, Réjean Marois.
Thank you, Will. Thank you.
Thank you for joining me. It's really special.
Pleasure.
Yeah. Now, I want to start, I think, somewhere that's a good reference point for me is Fort Langley. I heard the Marois Vocal Project on stage at Fort Langley. That was 2 or 3 summers ago, maybe, that you did that. I think it's 2 years ago. Okay. Is that right? That I heard you do this project with pretty much the same lineup that's going to be at Blue Shore, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk about that? Can you revisit that and tell me how that felt for you?
Yeah, there was an outdoor performance on the outdoor stage, The group has 8 voices and 3 rhythm section, and we had a saxophone player also as a guest for a few pieces. So that means, 12 people with me on stage. So, and the stage was pretty small.
Yeah.
So I remember the piano player, poor James, had to, it's James Decker, had to play, and the sun was coming right into his shoulders and, head. And I mean, it was very, very hot, a very hot day. But it was fun. There was quite a fair amount of people there and very enthusiastic. It was a really fun gig. We didn't have time to sound check properly, which is a big deal with 8 voice, 8 microphones, plus the whatever amplifications we need, or sound reinforcement we need for the rhythm section. I mean, it was such a short setup. So, but it was a really nice gig, and I think people enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it
on stage. Thank you. On stage, we had some issues with the sound, but we tried not to show it to the audience, and I think that the audience did feel it. I mean, I asked a few people, and they didn't see the problem there, which is good. They didn't hear the problem, which is good.
Yeah. As far as I could see, that ensemble with those kind of 8 voices plus the rhythm section, this is a collection of people who you've taught over 3 decades. How special is that? What does that mean to you?
That's great. That's I feel really fortunate and privileged, to have that. It started with when the Blue Shore Theatre, where they celebrate the 25th anniversary. And they did a concert. It was in October 2022, I think, 2022. Fiona Black, who has always been the person in charge, of getting all the artists, okay, for the Blue Shore Theater. She called me and she said that I was the first one who did a concert 27, 28 years ago at this new Blue Shore Theater. And she said, you have to come and do a concert, for the celebration. There was a lot of other artists, a lot of big names, okay, around in Vancouver. But she said, I want you to have a group. And she said, if possible, if you can actually manage a alumni group, okay, of over 30 years of NiteCap existence, if you can go back to, fairly the beginning and then maybe kind of a spectrum of all the different students, okay, we have. And then she limit, the number to 12 seniors because, of course, I could have go with a choir, yes, a big choir, But she said, you can find 100 voice. Not 100, 12 voice. Excuse me. Thank you. You give me the idea. Yes. and then, so I called. It was interesting. I had names in mind, of course, already. And then I checked all my old class list, and see where. And some surprise, some people from the States, which is, okay, California. And then, but one that I was really surprised, okay, his name is Blair Hammond. Blair studied way back in maybe in the 90s, late 90s, and he lives now in London, but not London, Ontario, London, UK.
All right.
And I managed to contact him through Messenger, and I just said, Blair, we have this. Any chance that you will be driving by? Actually, no, sorry. I didn't know where he was. He used to do a lot of cruise ships gig all over the planet. And I didn't know that he was actually settled in London,
Oh, wow.
I said, well, if you happen to be around Vancouver, we have this, he said, I live in UK and blah, 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 but I'll be there.
Okay.
I mean, it was really a big surprise for me. So we ended up we did those 12 great vocalists, and we did, this concert okay on 25th. That was a real pleasure. And the interesting part, as a former student at Cap, usually from generation to generation, people know each other. They know, I mean, you remember the people else. But there, the first rehearsal we had, I mean, maybe 8 people out of 12, they didn't know each other.
Oh,
they meet each other. Well, what year were you here? Then they never met. They didn't even know what they played or whatever. I was there in 19 blah blah blah. The other one was that was really interesting.
Huh.
Really, I was the only few students were kind of knew everybody in there. So it was a really great experience, really, really rewarding experience for me. And then I wrote specific music for that we're still doing, And so, yeah, that was just the beginning of that. And then some people, member of the group, decided to keep going with the group. They said, we need to keep that. And, it was so much fun, blah, 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 blah. So that's how you got the Langley thing. We did also one in Whistler, for another festival. And now it's going to be with the, North Shore Jazz. It's great,
Yeah, you facilitated a school reunion, a program reunion.
Oh boy,
yeah.
It's thanks Fiona for allowing this, and it was a great experience. She had budget for that, which is good. Normally many times these things are kind of voluntary things, but no, it was really done professionally. So very, very, very happy with that.
Yeah. Let's talk about the music because you mentioned it in the arrangements, and maybe you could talk a bit about what you played back then, but also especially what people can hear coming up, right? So maybe you could compare what you played back then to now, or talk a little bit. You're in town for a rehearsal for this, so you could talk about what you're going to play.
Yeah. So anyway, back then, okay, with this, she said about 30 minutes of program. So we said, we'll do 3 pieces, but 3 pieces quite well developed, So I wrote a composition, you mentioned as an arranger, but I tried to be as much as possible a composer. Since I retired. Even before I retired, I really start to write music in all kind of a style and, contemporary, what they call classical music, or not non-jazz and jazz and, all kind of stuff. I wrote a specific piece for this. It was good. And then we did what I'm trying to do with this piece, with this group, with 8 voices. I like the concept of doing conceiving this group as instruments on voice, or voice on instruments. I mean, depends on how you see it. But I like to do some kind of a big band style, applied to voice. And that's, or instrumental sources applied to voices, instrumental music, sources from that, okay, applied to voice. And this is great. So the first piece, my composition was written with this idea in mind, but also the second piece was also an instrumental piece it's originally came on Joe Zawinul recording, and it's called Shadow and Light by Joe Zawinul.
Huh.
And it has a great solo in there. And we're so fortunate to have this wonderful singer here, Carmen J. Price, who does a great job with this solo. I mean, we got to do it again on the 28th.
Nice.
But this is basically an electronic piece, with a lot of Joe Zawinul used a lot of keyboards and synthesizers and everything, and with bass and drum. And we applied all of this on voice, with the rhythm section. It's quite interesting. I think the result is really, really interesting to make it sound more like it's not a choir, it's like a vocal effect, okay, with a vocal solo, And then the last piece, of course, I had to do something with considering the situation, okay, on all the planet now, what's happening, okay, with in Ukraine, and now, of course, in Gaza versus Israel, I had to do something about the situation over the planet, and of course, for me, the most interesting composer writer, okay, for this is Stevie Wonder. Because it's my generation. Since the 70s, I grew up, okay, with Stevie Wonder and all those songs about, justice, segregation, and everything. I mean, it's so inspiring. And so we did a piece called, of him that I arranged called Conversation Piece. Piece is Peace. It's very, very beautiful text. So that was the repertoire for this thing that we did in 2022 in October for the celebration of the Blue Shore. And then after that, I added out a piece, okay, with the same idea of this. We had a piece, okay, of the Benny Goodman Orchestra, which was arranged by Fletcher Anderson. So we have the clarinets, the trumpets, and the trombones, okay, with the rhythm section, all on voices, okay, with the lyrics, great lyrics, okay, of John Hendricks. And it was called Down South Camp Meeting, which is a really well-known piece, okay, from, so older stuff, Then also a group that I heard when I was young, I mean, before I was 20 years old, that's, now this is in the, Stone Age, like the caveman. I heard this group, okay, from France, from Paris, called the Double Six of Paris, Double Six de Paris. And what they were doing, actually, taking the music of either Quincy Jones or the music when he was arranging, okay, for the Count Basie Orchestra, or the music of Dizzy Gillespie, big band stuff, and Mimi Perrin, the director, wrote some lyrics, French lyrics on that, and then they recorded that back then in 1962, 63.
Wow.
Interesting. So we will do some of that, okay, on the 28th. But the first part of the concert, okay, is dedicated to the music of Dave Brubeck.
Yes.
And some particular music, okay, for part of it. I mean, of course, we have the classics, Brubeck's classics, okay, with Take Five and Blue Rondeau à la Turque, which is, of course, almost, you have to do it if you do something with Brubeck. But the first four piece is coming from a musical that he wrote that is not really well known. It's called The Real Ambassadors. And there's a really interesting story about the Real Ambassadors. It goes back again in the late 50s and the 60s, when he wrote that. What happened basically is the government, the state government, okay, United States, okay, sent some jazz artists in U.S. At that time, it was USSR and some other countries, okay, in Middle East and everything, to kind of the idea of promoting, and I'm saying in bracket, promoting, okay, the democracy over the planet, with this. Of course, it was related to the USSR regime was actually different there. So they did that. And the jazz artists went there with some people like big names like Louis Armstrong and Carmen McRae on voice and, Lambert and Dixon, I think at that time was Bevan. And they went out there, and Dizzy Gillespie went there also, and it was great success all over the planet. I mean, they really, people enjoyed that, and it was great. The problem came when they went back, okay, into the United States. It was at the part of the time, we are before, in times, okay, we are before, put it this way, segregation was still very, very strong. Okay, unfortunately, in the States, Martin Luther King was about to do his famous march and speech. That happened about 4 or 5 years after. So the segregation was really, really, really strong in there. And Brubeck noticed, okay, then those black artists who came back in the States were not as well, let's say, appreciated that they would have been out, in the other countries. It was just, and him and his wife, Iota Brubeck, they decided, okay, to make a musical based on that. It was not a dramatic musical. It was a entertaining musical, like ironic, but also fun and everything. But they made really good songs, okay, out of that, to say that the real ambassador is actually the jazz people. To show the democracy, to show what music can bring into the world. It was a really interesting thing, a concept, okay, with that, right? So there was about 20 numbers, okay, that they wrote, music and lyrics, okay, and they present that this. I think Brubeck's dreams, okay, was that it would be presented, okay, in some of the big scene, okay, in the States. It never happened. It was done only once in a small piece and stuff like that, and it became part of history. I think other people did this maybe in 1990s or whatever later on, okay, with this, but it only happened a couple of times in the whole history, which is a drag. So I was, interested by this historical event, okay, in jazz, okay, especially with Dave Brubeck, because he's not only a wonderful pianist, but a wonderful composer, he's a great piece. And the lyrics are very, very interesting, the real ambassadors, and then got songs, okay, that says everybody's coming, and then the real ambassadors, and then we have cultural exchange, and the text is really, really, really interesting and significant. So we will do 4 pieces out of this 20 pieces there that I thought was representative, okay, of the idea of what music can bring and what, okay. So in fact, we want to go beyond, okay, Brubeck's concept, saying that it's not only the jazz musician, it's the music in general, and especially musicians from all origins and, countries and color of skin or whatever, they are, when it's well done, they're all real ambassadors, okay, of those great concepts, okay, whether it's democracy, whether it's, that's the idea behind the thing there, that's the idea behind the show there. So we'll elaborate more, and I'm sure that my good friends, okay, as part of the voice vocalist, will elaborate more on stage to explain what is the concept behind it. But it's the idea, the main idea there.
That's a wonderful preview of what you're going to program. Thank you.
Oh, please, no problem. I hope I make it clear enough. I'm sorry for that.
No, it's great.
Since I retired, besides my neighbors and everything, at home, and I don't have this fluent if I ever had it. I don't know. This kind of English, speaking, like this. I don't speak English every day unless my friend, neighbor comes and play billard, with me. Then of course, everybody around, we speak English. But I mean, when it's just the two of us and my sons come and it's all in French. And so I think I noticed, that it's a little bit more difficult. And, now students may say, that 5 years ago, 10 years ago, that was not better. They could very well say that.
Oh, it's fantastic. No, it's so good. Oh. I'm wondering if you would let me take it back even further, because I enjoyed when you mentioned, when you were growing up, you listened to Stevie Wonder and, this when I was young. And I think even the people like myself who did know you up at CapU before you retired, I think probably don't know a lot about your upbringing. So if there's anything you want to say, if you just look at the big period of time that's until you come to Vancouver, anything about your upbringing in that time period that you want to share to give people an idea of what it was like.
Okay. So, I was fortunate. I studied in Laval University in Quebec City, and basically, I was really interested by guitar. Played guitar a lot at that time, acoustic guitar only, and then but I grabbed the trombone. Actually, I started on the euphonium, with baritone horn, playing in concert band, and I conduct at the age of 18. I was conducting the concert band, the community concert band in my city.
When you were 18?
18.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I really love this repertoire. I really love this thing. And I did for about 5 years, conducting, and we went to some, festivals and everything, and got some prize and everything. It was really interesting. And so jazz was always part also of my, listening habits, especially when I met my wife, which we met pretty young. Her house had a great collection of jazz albums because of her two brothers. They collect a lot of great classics. Of course, it was all vinyls. There was no CDs, and
didn't exist.
But going there, when I was going to her place, I always love to put anything on the system, that can listen to Stan Getz or Gillespie or whatever, I discovered a lot of things without having to buy them at that point,
Nice.
It was great resources for me. But I was really attracted by that. And then I got into the university and start, my first couple of years of the program. And then I joined a group. There was a real professional group, in Quebec City. It was basically, what do you call it, convention band, At that time, playing for conventions and dance music, was really a good job. It was a steady job, So my program director didn't like it because, I started to, pay the tuition for the course. Then actually 2 weeks after I have to drop it because we had a tour somewhere, gig, a tour for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And I couldn't, it became just a nightmare, for my studies, but great experience, for the playing, we were pretty good. We were good enough, to be hired by the Government of Canada representative, with this, and they hired us, to play for the UN forces wherever they were on the planet.
Oh,
so I ended up to travel. I mean, wherever we was talking about, Gaza and Israel, Cyprus Island, Greece, Germany, of course. Everywhere there was a Canadian base. We went there and give some concerts with a lot of, sometimes those tour would have 60 people, a list of maybe 18 artists, like magicians, comedians, singers. And I mean, it was kind of a circus.
Real variety show.
Real variety show. And of course, it was very paid for, really well paid and everything, and beautiful. I mean, it was just a great time of my life. I did it for about, let's say 12, 13 years in a row, for this. And then I had trying to complete any kind of a university program within that, it was just a nightmare. And then, of course, also we played a lot in either Quebec City or Montreal, and we had the summer gigs, with this in a great resort called Le Manoir Richelieu. For those who knows Quebec, know what it is. It's a beautiful old hotel that the government hold, and we played there every summers. Played there again for 10 summers, okay, or 11 summers. So I mean, that was my experience as a player.
Wow.
You know, a lot of so, and then what was great with this band, and not only that was good to play. I mean, the trombone book was pretty challenging, and we did a lot of voice. So there's this situation where I start to be interested with voice, you know. And then I did also a fair amount of gigs because there was a lot of recording studio gigs, okay, for publicity, you know, all kind of gigs and something, okay, for any brand like Coca-Cola or whatever. And they think that you have to do it in French, you know. So I was hired for a vocalist and a trombone player and as an arranger also. I started to arrange at that point with this, right? Even on tour with this big band, with not big band, but this great band, I became like a second arranger on the tour. So you're at a hotel, you're in a room, and then you just write your charts and everything, and people copy the charts, and you rehearse. Then right on tour, you're like so that was I would say my actually master degree, if not my doctorate degree, okay, with this experience there, you know, it was because you deal with all kind of a unknown situation, and you know, so it was great. But then I got tired of that, you know, got tired of all different things because you know the music business changed quite a bit, you know, into the late '80s, you know, or mid '80s. The more recording was used, okay, for dance music and, you know, what they call disco or whatever, like, you know, it became there. It took a lot of job, okay, of the bands like us, okay, this, although we kept playing a lot. I resigned to this band, okay, with this, and then for 3 years after, the guy called me all the time to sub the trombone player that was there because I had to, you know, he wanted me to go back there, and then finally, you know, I decided to stop completely with this because we had a first child, Sebastian, was born in 1986. So decided to change my lifestyle because it was really, I mean, basically it was in the suitcase, like a lot of times, you know, traveling and not very stable in terms of but great experience again, you know, like wonderful experience. So then, you know, then after that, so then I conducted in the little college I was teaching, I had a vocal group. So there was a big festival, a Canadian festival called Music Fest Canada, came in Quebec City in '85. So I present two groups. I present my big band, and I had a big band also from the school, and then I was a vocal group. And people were quite interested, the organization. They said, you have to come in Vancouver. It's going to happen in '86, the Expo. You know, and you have to be there. So we got from the government bursary, and then I brought my vocal group here, you know, and then we were sent to all different schools, for those who remember that, who were there, teachers, you know, in the Lower Mainland and on Vancouver Island. You know, we had a tour on top of what we did for the festival, and we performed for the Expo also, you know, so it was a beautiful trip. We discovered Vancouver this way, my wife and I.
Had you been there before?
No.
It was
the first time, you know. I've been to, you know, because of these tour with the UN forces, we went to Ellesmere Island. We went to, there's a place up north here, North BC. There was some Canadian base there. I don't remember the name, sorry.
But you went really far north.
Far north, but not here in Vancouver. That was first time. And then we discovered that, and I mean, I'll pass you some details about the hotel because it was another story. But it was a great experience, So we decided, you know, I remember to a school district artistic manager, you know, the school district artistic director, said, you know, if you ever have like an offer or something, you just let me know. Maybe I will consider to come, you know. So '88, the phone rang. It was this guy. He said, we have something for you, 1988 or '87, something for you for next year, you know. Okay. So I decided my wife and I took a leave of 1 year, leave of absence in the place where we were working in Quebec, you know. It was Cégep Sainte-Foy, and Joanne was in the school dance, you know. We took 1 year of leave of absence. At the end of that year, at the end of '88, they called us, said, "What's happening? Are you coming back?" I said, "No." That was it. That was it. We never went back, except visit the family. That was how I got into '88, here. And there was this program. I was affected to a high school, and a good high school, good program, which I didn't know if I was, to do it for long, but I said, we'll do it for now. It was, good steady job and a good, but then somebody called me from Capilano College at that time. And a lot of people will recognize him. It was Mike Rivley. Mike Rivley calling me. He said, "Well, we heard you here, and we'd like to start a good vocal group." There was no vocal group. It was only a big band happening there in some of ensemble. Wow. Guitar ensemble maybe, and but it was no program. It was a commercial program, no jazz program. So I started in '88, I think so, '88, to create the first group that we always end up to be at the pub. It was close by the university. I don't think it was the hotel we have now, but there was a pub there. So somebody, and one night they said, "Oh, we should find a name," because we were to go to some festivals again with this group, We need to find a name for this group. Well, I said, "We'll always end up to have a NiteCap, so might as well call NiteCap."
There we go. The origin.
And the Capilano, he said, "That's it. You got it."
Yeah.
So that's how it started.
Yeah. So the Cégep Sainte-Foy, that was your job when your first child was born, that you got out of this band lifestyle and you went there. But then you didn't end up being there very long because you ended up coming to Vancouver pretty soon after, a couple of years.
I worked part-time there for many times because, again, we were just between with those gig and tours and, it was just a struggle.
So you did it during that period of time?
Yeah. At the end, more at the end, with it, right? And then there's always some teaching in there, but sometimes it was very, very light in terms of load because I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford it. I was always gone, with with many times. Not always, but many times away, playing and that's what you want to do. It was great. We played some great music with the dance. People at that time, I don't know if they would dance on the same kind of a beat and stuff. It was the convention things, allow you to play some very sophisticated music because the good dancers will dance not only the kind of things that we see nowadays, in those, in this kind of a 120, tempo, boom, 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 all the time. No, they play mambo, you play merengue, you play some kind of a Latin music with sophisticated dancing, paso doble, and the good dancers at that time, with the generation, they would dance that, and the young people would dance on the Chicago, stuff, Blood, Sweat, and Tears, those great brass group. We had our own, and everything we did was arranged. It was not as per the recording. We had our own version. Something from the Beatles was really Beatles, but through the group, like by So that was a good school of concept, programming concept, everything, it was a great time, it was demanding because, while you're studying, and imagine you play 5 nights a week, ending at 2:00 in the morning. Then the class at 8:30 the next day, you're a little bit, you're beautiful. Put it this way.
So some of these people in the vocal project today, they were your students, and you had only been in what was then the commercial music program at CAP. You'd only been there for a couple of years, and some of these people were some of these people who are in your ensemble today, they were some of your first few years students.
Yeah, Steve Maddock, for example, per se, his wife, Siri Ollison was there. Laura Harrison, who now teaches at CAP, she took my group, my job basically, and Dr. Laura Harrison. There was Maddock, Siri Ollison, and also Dr. Jared Burroughs was in the first years with this, right? But a few years after, I was just teaching part-time in a high school, and we had more time at Capilano College. And then Mike Rivley asked me, he said, "Are you interested? We want to apply for Open University bachelor degree. Are you interested to work for that with me?" He said, sure. I said, but I didn't know at all, okay, what we were going, okay, with this and what kind of but, I was doing ensemble, the NiteCap ensemble, had another vocal group also. And then was really interested with conducting big band, and the development of that and discussions we had, okay, ended up to work for a couple of years and being approved, okay, for the bachelor degrees. And then I came full time, okay, with this at Capilano. I think in 1984, probably 84, 85, somewhere around there. It was basically became regular there, and it was good. Obviously, I was really happy with this. And then we start a few years after. I met Fiona Black, and she said, I'd like to do some concerts, okay, with the students. And, we start this kind of a collaboration of having a guest. And then when it became for the vocal thing, people said, yeah, big band. Most of the artists have some big band charts. They come and do things. But said, what about, I said, it would be important for me that we have a vocal representation there as well as we have instrumental representation. But they said, well, we have no music. I said, I'll write it. And that's how it started. So every artist was coming. I was contacting them before and getting their music, not their music, but the recordings. Sometime a little chart, one page, and few chords, that's it. And then you do the rest. I had to do the rest. And this is how we start all this, series of concerts, okay, we did over the years, okay, since until I retired,
Yeah. I remember a bunch of artists who came around the time that I was there.
Yeah,
and maybe you remember kind of periods of time at Cap based on those artists somewhat, right? Like you also remember based on some students who were there too. Yeah, I mean, around my time, there's Randy Brecker.
Oh, boy.
Ambrose Akinmusiri.
Oh, yeah.
Vocalist David Lynx. I think that was the first one.
Oh, wow.
Was when I showed up.
David is incredible.
Was him, yeah. And then there's a few more, too. I think Donnie McCaslin around that time as well. Maybe,
Donnie McCaslin. Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
Those maybe like early 2010s, kind of like 10 years ago now.
What is great with this big names, people like this, they're all very interested and very keen to share things with the students. It was the big majority of them, it was such a positive experience for me, and I hope for the students also, because it was, it was so great to share the stage. And of course, we only had one rehearsal to set up this. Okay, I prepared the group myself. Okay, without having the artist with us, and then the artist would fly, and on Thursday, sometime during the day, and Thursday evening was the rehearsal. Couple of hours, that was it, and then the next day a sound check and Friday night concert.
Wow.
That was the same way all the time, and it worked really well. It was, I think, he exposed the students to such a variety of style and concepts, and and just watching these people on stage, the way they act, I think was a beautiful, great model, okay, for people who wants to actually do it, okay, themselves, as professionals,
You would be an expert, a super expert on this one slice of a question here. What are the considerations? Like, I was an instrumentalist. What are the special considerations when you're a vocalist and you go and enroll in a program like CapU's program? How different is that experience for you as a student versus an instrumentalist?
Yeah, that's a good question. Okay. Many universities and sometimes you have students, vocal students, don't appreciate that. Okay, we got some students, okay, coming from other institutions. I won't name any here. And they said that they didn't feel looked after properly because there was insert in some instrumental group. There's no consideration, okay, from the curriculum to there. They do what the instrumentalists do, and it's interesting because I started to, not to say go against that, but to make some adjustment at Cap. Okay, with it. That was way back in the beginning, of when we got the bachelor degree, and of course some faculty didn't always agree with me. Then we had to good discussions. But, what I like about that, the whole thing is I always remember that everything was respected, done with respect. Okay, my idea is this, and I will demonstrate what I'm, my theory, basically. I will demonstrate, okay, that is going to get some more results, okay, if we proceed this way instead of doing what other universities or institutions do, which I did. And I really acknowledge, okay, with this, and thanks, okay, the department to allow me to have done this. So this being said, we did it, and then first students, okay, we start to realize there was a difference, okay, into their performance. So the typical vocal students, before was actually singing, singing the head, what do you mean, the melody, at the beginning. Then they let the piano play the solo improvisation and solo, and they would come back at the end, sing the melody again, and that was it. And they call themselves jazz, musicians.
Mm.
To me, I call this a singer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I always make with students will remember that makes a difference between a singer and a jazz vocalist or a jazz musician, even better. It is a singer will sing the melody, and this is what Céline Dion has done her life, and great. I mean, no problem there. This is what a lot of people do
from any genre.
From any genre, that's good, and that's how it does. But I mean, jazz has this particularity. I mean, you need to have a better toolbox. You need to get deeper into the knowledge of the material. So in other words, okay, with this, if a vocalist doesn't write, this is his right, not to get into the writing, but they should have the capacity of doing it. Because when you write, you understand the inside, okay, of the theory and all the music language. You understand the essence, okay, of what you need to do. Therefore, if you understand that, then you can apply it, okay, on improvisation. With, of course, it's easy to say. It doesn't come in one day or in 1 week. A lot of work. It's not a question there. So to me, was the thing that you have to approach the vocalist, okay, with this kind of a getting into the language. And if you do it with the saxophone player or the trumpet player, they are ahead of things because they don't need to adjust. I mean, the pitch is coming from the instruments, where the voice, your brain and your ears, okay, have to produce the sound, and the quality comes, okay, from the instruments of the mouth and the voice and everything. But I mean, the point is that there's a different process there.
Yeah.
And so we did that, and then it became really interesting to listen that, some singers, okay, taking, now not only allowing the piano player or the trumpet player or the saxophone player for soloing, but taking more solos themselves, being able to take 2 or 3 choruses, and okay, maybe some of them were not always that wonderful, but at least they were getting through the song, getting through the chords, and with some specific techniques. And that was my goal at that time. Get through it, and learn your stuff in a way that you can actually proceed through, with this. And the beautiful things there is that, in 4 years of a program or 5 years of a program, it's almost not enough time to get really to a point where you get out of there and you're really, improvising, okay, with this way. But the interesting part for me is to listen after 2 years, 3 years after they graduate, those who kept doing it, those who kept working it. And now you get to a festival, like, for example, I remember I was living in Yaletown, okay, in Vancouver, and going to the jazz festival, and walking there, the street, stage, whatever. Oh, this student there. Oh, yeah, she's there. Oh, he's there. And you listen to this like 2 or 3 years after graduation. So, oh, wow, there's some progress there. There's some really, something is get achieved there. And, the first thing you want to do is to go, wow, congratulations, Doesn't matter to me how well they did in their graduation recitals if they kept doing after it. Because it's, your music learning doesn't stop with the graduation. It keeps going all lifelong, And then, so to me, it's to start that seed, okay, into their brain, okay, to get into this. But then, the good things, I said at the beginning, we want to separate things a little bit. Good thing is that into the program, it became so well established now that the vocalist will do as well, not as well. Well, some people, very serious instructor, used to tell me that, in some class in the third year, whatever, the vocalists were doing better than some instrumentalists. No, not in the first year. But few years after, they became really, really, some good students, okay, became really, really. So what happened, okay, after maybe 5, 6 years or 7 years of this program like this and everything, the students start to wanted to be integrated into the instrumental class right away. No need to be separated at the beginning for this because the integration was coming from generation after generation. The first year students was hearing the third year students or the fourth year students and say, okay, I will get like this. I will. And you know what I mean? It's just like the program got back into where it was at the beginning, which it was a problem. But then it looks like we solved the problem. I don't know how it is now, but remember when I retired, all of that stuff that I was doing, not all, but a big part of that stuff I was doing, okay, and me and my colleagues like Steve Maddock, for example, other vocal instructor, they were doing, okay, to get the voice into their place, okay, for the improvisation, all that stuff kind of erased gradually, and it became integrated into the instrumentalist. With the instrumentalist. So we're back to where we were supposed to be at the beginning, but I think that without this transition, I don't know how we would have been very different than other institutions. Am I making it clear? We got a little bit, we got recognized, okay, as a little bit kind of a special in terms of the vocal production because I think that this, and I don't want to take all the credit. Of course, I got assistance from other people. I got help. I mean, with some of these class I taught with Brad Turner, for example, vocal improvisation with Brad Turner, who doesn't sing. Hiro Kukuruza, who was a guitar instructor, Bill Kuhn.
Yeah.
We work a lot, okay, together. And, it was so rewarding for me and to share, with this wonderful musician. But we got through this kind of a system like this that now, hopefully now it's still going and the voice are very comfortable with the instrumentalist. For what I've heard, and in some of the concerts we heard, I mean, I think they're in really good shape there, and I'm very happy for that.
Yeah.
They're still doing very good.
That's a legacy.
Yes. Yeah.
I want to close with this kind of last chapter of these last couple of years and hear just a little bit in general about how you feel now that this super long period of your career, now that you completed it. But I guess I'll start this way. Like you described so nicely what it was that caused you to leave to come to Vancouver and like what that period was like. But how did you know when it was time to retire from CAP?
Oh, I think we got some message, message from the body, start with, I don't want to put it on her case there, but for my wife, she was very intense in her teaching and very, very involved, okay, with this. And then something happened that, we said, well, okay, now it's time to maybe to slow down, So we were actually living in downtown Vancouver. So, and I want to spend more time into writing. We were in Yaletown. And it was great. It was close to all the venues, okay, the Orpheum and, writing. And she slowed down as well, So I didn't want to keep going, working and let her, be on herself and everything. We said, we got to do some project together, So the project was basically traveling, and then going around, okay, concerts and, stuff like that. And then I guess the other things I was happy with my decision. I think I decided to stop 1 year before COVID happened.
Mm-hmm.
So COVID, wow. Now everything stopped. And I felt so bad. I was okay. I was fine myself. We just had to be careful about our own health. But I was so sad for all the professional musicians who shared their revenue, okay, with gigs and teaching and all of this stopped. I was so worried about that. Okay, with this for them thinking about this, but there's nothing you could do except helping maybe one or two here. If you could do something, okay, with that, which we did, But and then with COVID, our boys give us a message. Okay, with this was middle of COVID. We're living downtown. They said, you got to move out of there. You got to move out of there because it's a healthier place, okay, to stay than Vancouver, at this point with this situation. So we had some place on the coast, on Sunshine Coast, okay, that we rented, and we liked this lifestyle there. We were going there for holidays and, so we decide, once, it's just always the same story. Boys says, get out of there, move. Oh, no way, we don't want to move. 2 months after, we were buying a house. And that's how we got into the Sunshine Coast. And we love it. Gardening, so close to nature. We have bears coming to visit us, regularly. But, try to keep in touch, okay, with music and, with this kind of a project like this once in a while. It's great. This time of production, I wish I could have a foot somewhere, in Vancouver, so I don't have to take the ferry back and forth.
Yeah.
But, there's one member, Andy Rice, okay, he shares, okay, his time between Powell River and Vancouver. So he was driving this morning from Powell River to be to the rehearsal tonight at 6 here.
It's further than you.
This is, it's just incredible. But it's great. It's wonderful,
Well, I've had a wonderful time talking to you. I hope you have a fantastic concert. I really enjoyed this. Thank you, Réjean, for your time.
Thank you so much for having me here. Thank you, Will.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of the Rhythm Changes podcast. If you enjoyed it, become a member for free today at rhythmchanges.ca. Get the free weekly email. The next one will be the July gig list already coming out of the Jazz Fest time. There's still a lot going on this summer. If you want to catch even more of it, become a subscriber and get the Subscriber Fridays column that I write to those who pay and support the site. Thanks again, and I will catch you in the next installment of this show.